Okay, so let's get to sewing. Grab your pattern piece B along with one of your lining pieces, which is your pocket lining piece H. Just grab one of those. And what you're going to do is clip them together along this end. This is why it's so important that you mark your markings, mark everything so you know you're working with the right side, because this is the rivet side down below. But you want to make sure at the top you have clipped the right sides together. And then what you're going to do is you're going to, after you stitch this together at 1/2 inch seam allowance, you're going to flip this up, and then the seam allowance will be flipped down, and then you will sew across this lining fabric seam at 1/4 inch. I will show you that in the next clip. Okay, so this is what the piece looks like once it's all done. As you can tell, your rivet pieces are on the top. What you did was sew first that 1/2 inch, and then once you sewed those together at 1/2 inch with the seam allowances down, you then sewed across the top on the lining side 1/4 inch. And so now this entire piece will be known as your front panel from here on throughout making it. Now grab your back piece, which is piece A, and that piece you just finished, keep that, which is now your front main piece, lay that right side facing up, and then the back piece, which is piece A, lay that on top. So they're going to be right sides facing together, and you will notice just a little bit of an overhang here at the bottom, that lining piece. That is supposed to happen, but what you're going to do is you're going to trim off the excess of lining at the bottom, making the front and back pieces even. Once you have done that, go ahead and set these pieces to the side for now, but I highly suggest, if you have a rotary cutter, go to your rotary mat, go ahead and trim off this excess here at the bottom, and then go ahead and set these off to the side. Okay, so now you're going to repeat the first 2 steps we've just completed. In steps 1 and 2, you want to grab your other lining piece, pattern piece H. Let me move this out of the way so you can see. And then you want to grab your front pocket, which is pattern piece C, and you want to lay them right sides together. Do note that the base, the bottom part of this pocket, is at the bottom, so just make sure you don't accidentally sew it at the top. And then what you're going to do is stitch all the way across 1/2 inch, and again flip that seam allowance down and sew onto the lining piece 1/4 inch. And then we're going to move to step 5 on page 9, which is the front pocket piece, piecing that together with double-sided tape. I will show you that in the next clip. Okay, so now that you have sewn those pattern pieces together, as you can tell here, I did the top stitching on the right hand side 1/4 inch with that seam folded down. Remember, your base is up here. Here's where your base marking is. What you want to do is measure from here down 7 inches, draw a line all the way across, and then measure from here down 9 inches and draw a line all the way across. Then you're going to take your double-sided tape. Remember, it was 1/4 inch if you have it on hand. If it's a little wider, that's okay. Go ahead and lay it inside those lines. So as you can tell, it is inside the lines. It's not on the lines. It's not outside the line, but inside the line. And you want to go ahead and stick that down. And then what you want to do is go ahead and then now peel off the double-sided tape, and then you're going to fold this front piece in half, wrong sides together, lining up the bottom edges, and then give it a good finger press or roller. So you will, once you remove this double-sided tape, you're going to take this piece and fold it in half. and behind this piece here will be that double-sided tape, and then you're going to take the roller and go across. I will show you that in the next step. Okay, so as you can tell, I folded it up and then I went ahead and used, I don't have a poly roller, I just have this. I think this might be linked in my Amazon store, but if not, you can find something similar. So what I do is use this to make sure everything is stuck together and everything is laying nice and flat. Now what you want to do is flip this over to the right side. You can take these clips off. I just have this here to help keep everything stable. But with right side up, stitch 2 lines at the top of the folded pocket piece. So this is the folded pocket piece. You want to go ahead and stitch 2 lines across the top of the folded pocket piece. One at 1/4 of an inch all the way across, and then one at 1/2 an inch all the way across. And so what you want to do is just make sure that everything is nice and sturdy and everything is nice and crisp and everything here, and then go ahead and use between a 3 and 3.5 stitch length, because this piece that you're stitching here will show on the outside. So just make sure that you have those properly marked and your stitch length is properly set up on your machine. I will show you what that looks like when I come back. Okay, now that your pocket piece is all prepared, what you want to do is mark a line down the center front on the right side. And again, you want to use a marking tool that can be cleaned off or erased. And so I'm using the Tandy leather marking tool so you can see it clearly for the video. And then once you have that marked, what you want to do is grab that main front piece. One of the tips I have, if after you start combining pieces together you think you might get confused what that piece is now, just label it, put a sticky on the front of it or somewhere on the pattern piece so you know what you're working with now. Okay, so what you want to do is mark down from the top here down 4.5 inches, and then place a marking there. A marking, and again I'm using this pen. You want to do that on both sides, because what you're going to do is now lay this pocket piece and match up those sides. Match up where you have just marked right there, and then you want to go ahead and clip one side down. Okay, so you want to go ahead and clip down this one side and open up the pattern piece. So now you see this side of your pocket, and what you want to do is mark your center line from the top all the way down to the bottom. That 4.5 inch mark, this levels with that 4.5 inch mark, which is pretty much at the top of your pocket. Go ahead and put down some double-sided tape here, and what you want to do is once you peel this double-sided tape off, go ahead and lay this back down. Again, you can use your roller, give it a good smoothing out, and then what you want to do is go ahead and clip the rest of the way down. Make sure everything is even. Clip all the way around, because what you're going to do is, starting from the bottom, you're going to stitch all the way up, then pivot 1/8 of an inch and come all the way back down. I will show you that in the next step. And bear in mind, you are not sewing these sides. You are just starting here with your stitching. So when you go over to your machine, go ahead and turn this now upside down, and what you want to do is start 1/8 of an inch from this line you have drawn. Go all the way up, and you cannot see, but I'm going to try to zoom in. You can see my stitching. You want to stop at this section right here, and then go across that stitch line, and then go all the way back down 1/8 of an inch from this line, all the way back down, because then in the next step you're going to punch a hole right at that cross where you went down, making sure you don't catch any of this stitching. And then this is where you're going to set your rivet, put your rivet in place. And remember, if you do not have rivet, you can use Chicago screws here as well. And she does have a note in the pattern. If you don't have a short shaft for the male end of your rivet, you may need to place a scrap piece of vinyl or leather behind the rivet to build it up so you don't bend the rivet when you're setting it in place. But if you don't have that issue, you will be able to set the rivet. So once I go ahead and stitch up this end, go back around and stitch back down right before I set my rivet, I will go ahead and punch at least the hole, so then you'll see what this looks like once this section has been stitched. And what it's doing is forming your pockets, and I will show you that when I come back. Okay, so I wanted to just come in and show you when you're getting up to the top of that pocket, you don't want to go past, there we go, you don't want to go past this stitching. You want to turn around at the stitching. And see how I just put my needle in there, and then go ahead and just lift this up, so then you can just turn your work easily, and then just do a couple stitches, because again you're going to go down 1/8 inch from that same line that you just came up from. So, and then you're going to turn your work, and again you can barely see my lines and my stitching because my color, my thread, but here's my line that I drew down, and I'm 1/8 inch now coming back down towards the bottom. Okay, I know this might be a little difficult to see, but here is my drawn line, and then 1/8 inch on this side are the lines I just stitched. I went up, came across, and came back down. Again, it's 1/8 inch from this line that you drew, and what you're going to do is go ahead and put your hole in your rivet there, so you're not putting it through any stitching lines. You're going to put it right in there. It'll fit just perfect. I will show you what it looks like once my hole is in, and then I will go ahead and set my rivet. Okay, so I have punched my hole in, as you can see here. Here's the opening, and I am going to go ahead and place my rivet right in place, as you can see there, and put the back on and snap everything, whoops, and snap everything into place. So everything is snapped into place. And now I'm going to use my rivet press and go ahead and set that rivet. Okay, now that your rivet is in place, what you want to do is on one side of your pocket, you're going to do this on the other side. Remember where you have your mark placement there? What you want to do is move this pocket piece in 1/8 of an inch, and this is just at the placement mark only. You don't want to move it 1/8 of an inch all the way down, just right here at the top, and then you're going to reclip it, and you're going to sew this all together. And so this is just making sure that one piece at the top is inward. And so what this is doing is that the front pocket will not pull on the back once the bag is complete. It's actually pretty genius when you think about it. But go ahead and move that piece in 1/8 of an inch, and go ahead and stitch all the way down on both sides of the front piece. And you do want to also sew from the side all the way across the bottom, back up 1/8 of an inch around all these next pieces, and then we'll move on to the next step. Okay, I just wanted to show you what this looks like. So it's just that top piece right at the mark, 1/8 inch in, and then you're gonna stitch all the way down. You see how it doesn't, you're not moving this whole piece in, just that top corner piece on both sides. And look at that, this is now your front piece. Your pockets are in place. Now grab your Kraftex. Okay, with your Kraftex pieces off to the side, go ahead and also grab your exterior front and back pieces. And then what you want to do is go ahead and do a second placement line, which is 5/8 inch from the top of both your exterior front and back pieces. So 5/8 inch from the top. I've written on here just so you can see. And then draw a line all the way across from one end to the other for both your back and your front pieces. Mark that 5/8 of an inch. And then, and this is for the Kraftex that we're going to be working with, then grab your Kraftex pieces as shown here, and on both of them measure in 3.5 inches, mark a line, measure in 3.5 inches, mark your line, flip both pieces over, and using your 1/4 inch wide double-sided tape, go ahead and tape across the top edges. So you are taping at this same top part. Then what you want to do is round off your edges. Now the pattern didn't say how much to round off. I think I did. I measured my little piece here about 3/8 of an inch. I just kind of rounded these corners on both pieces. And then once that is completed, we will move on to the next step. Okay, so after you have peeled off that double-sided tape, you're going to go ahead and place it on that 5/8 inch line that you just marked. And you see the center line, that's line, those should line up. The center of your piece and that line that you had drew on your Kraftex should line up, but again, it's not at the 1 inch line, it's at the 5/8 inch line. And because you have now covered up your 1 inch line, you want to redraw that line all the way across. And then from there, with the right side up, this, you're doing this on your front and back exterior pieces, you can go ahead now and punch out your holes. And this was done in the prep section. So for me, if you remember, I marked it directly on the wrong side of the faux leather here, and it was just for demonstration purposes so you can see. But you can mark that on the right side as long as you have a good marking tool. But again, for demonstration purposes, I wanted you to see where those holes were so you wouldn't get your pieces twisted up. So anyway, now you can go ahead and punch your holes. Yes, you will be punching through both the Kraftex as well as your exterior fabric. So go ahead and do that for your front and back pieces. And if you want to add your label, this is also a good time where you want to add your label onto the front piece right above, about 3 inches down. Let's see, let me flip this over so you can see. If you are adding a label, you want to go ahead and measure 3 inches down from the top edge here. Measure 3 inches down, make sure the label is centered between the holes, and then before marking, and then go ahead and mark your slits and place your label on. I do not have a label, unfortunately, for this one, so I will not be doing that, adding a label here, but you can go ahead and do that. So go ahead and punch your holes and place your label in, and then we'll move on to the next step. Okay, so if you attached your label according to the instructions in the pattern, go ahead and finish that off. And then you want to put right sides together, your front and your back pieces, and you're going to clip both sides here. And then what you're going to do is stitch from the top all the way down to the bottom 3/8 of an inch. So from here all the way down 3/8 of an inch, from here all the way down 3/8 of an inch. And these are just my base placement pieces in my center piece markings here. That's what you see here, but 3/8 of an inch on this side, 3/8 of an inch on this side. Okay, so you should have stitched 3/8 of an inch on both sides of this, your front and back. And then what you want to do is right where that pocket is, can you see that? You want to do some more stitching right in here. Doesn't have to be perfect, but some more stitching just to reinforce this area, because obviously you'll be going in and out of the pockets, so you're just reinforcing the area. Now right above the secured stitch line that you've created here, you want to do a snip. You should see that, yes, and make sure you don't snip into the stitching and you're not snipping the pocket. It's right above that area. You're going to go ahead and snip that, so it's this section here that you'll be able to move back and forth. And then what you want to do is take your 1/4 inch double-sided tape and go, and you're doing this on both sides. So I've done this on this side already as well, and so on both sides in this seam, inside the seam here, go ahead and lay down your 1/4 inch double-sided tape, where making sure it's lined up towards this edge, because what we're going to end up doing is clearing off a section up here. Just up here at the top, you're going to be trimming off the top edge at an angle, and what that will do is help to reduce the bulk when you begin top stitching. And then you can go ahead and finger press that open. But first, go ahead, if you after you've done your secured your extra stitching here, you've clipped into that seam again, not through, just in and above where that pocket is. You don't want to cut your pocket. And then go ahead and lay your double-sided tape down. I will do one side and come back and show you how it would look when you trim off that angle. Okay, so you have your double-sided tape on, and I put something underneath so you can kind of see here. So what you want to do is trim, which is grading really, up to the top part. So remember, you had your 5/8 inch line mark, you had your 1 inch line mark. I would start pretty much where that 1 inch is and grade up to pretty much nothing at the top up here, because what you're going to do, the next step you're going to do is at the top with your 1/4 inch double-sided tape, you're going to put that all the way around the front and back. Because once this is open, you're going to remove the double-sided tape and use your roller pin or whatever you have, your fingers, press this down, because once that tape is at the top and you take it off, you're going to be folding this line here down to that 1 inch line all the way around the top. So it's going to look like this all the way around the top. But first, grade in this seam, trim off. You're reducing, what you're doing is reducing the bulk in this area, because you're going to end up top stitching that area, so you're reducing the bulk. So again, have your double-sided tape down, go ahead, take the double-sided tape off, press these seams open. Again, you are doing both sides. This side isn't done yet. I will do the same thing I'm showing you over on this side, and then go ahead and finger roll those open or use your roller pin. Then put double-sided tape all the way around the top edge only, around the front and back. And then what you're going to do is, again, fold down to that line, use your roller pin, and just roll really good all the way around. And so once that is done, I will show you what that looks like. Okay, now that you have your pieces together, as you can see, your double-sided tape, that's where that folded on the side, so it's looking like this. If I can get a good angle here, you gotta stick it stick it pretty good. But anyway, this is how it look on the sides, and then this is how it will look once you fold it over onto that line. Nice and clean. Make sure that you have rolled it and given it so it's nice and crisp. Now you're gonna continue on with your front and back piece, but grab your base piece. What you're gonna do is, and this is why it's so important to mark your your centers. So what you're going to do is on both the front and back only, you're only going to clip these areas. You are going to match up your center piece on your front and of your piece D. Mark those center pieces right there, and you're only going to clip the one side. Clip the one side. I will show you what that looks like. Okay, so this is what it looks like. You're only going to clip one side for now. And what you're going to do is, what you will notice on your pattern piece where you marked your base placement, see that on the exterior, you will notice the base piece stops right at that line. And you will notice that on both sides. So here's my base piece, and it's stopping right at that side. And so what you're going to do is stitch, you're going to actually begin stitching at the corner point here. Make go backwards and forward, do your back stitching, and then making sure you don't go past the starting stitch. Continue to stitch along the drawn line here all the way down until you reach the end, and then you want to again back stitch there at the end. And of course you're going to flip this over, do the exact same thing on the other side. Go ahead and clip and stitch. Again, you're only stitching, and that's why it was so important that you had these lines on here. You are stitching starting right here, needle down right there, back stitch, go all the way across and back stitch. Do this on both sides. I will show you what that looks like once I am done. And I just wanted to show you, to be sure, this is why you marked your lines. Where they cross, that's where you want to lower your needle and begin stitching forward and back stitching, and then going all the way towards the end and back stitching at the end. Okay, now that you have sewn your base in place, as you see here, what you want to do is take your scissors and snip approximately 1/4 of an inch within the seam allowance right at that stitching. You're going to do this on all, I've done it already on all sides, so on this side as well as the back. See how we've clipped in there 1/4 of an inch. Now the one thing you want to be careful of when you are doing this, you're only clipping the exterior front and back piece. You are not clipping the base, so do not clip the base piece, only the exterior front and exterior back. Because what you're going to do is then line up your marking that is within here to your side seam. Open up the side seams. You're going to clip everything together, and you're going to sew just like you did from this point all the way down to this point here. And again, you want to make sure that you are back stitching at the front and back, and then you can go ahead and make a second stitch once all of that is done, all the way around at 1/8 of an inch, just for some added security. But I'm going to do this one side and let you know what that looks like. Okay, so I want to show you what this looks like when it's clipped together. So now when you're doing the side, what you're doing is clipping that in, and you're going to start right at that point and go stitch all the way down. And as you can tell by the way you've clipped and stitched the longer side, that lays right nicely together. So you want to do that to both sides of the bottom pieces. Hard to do this with one hand. And then go around the entire base at 1/8 of an inch, just to give it added security. Okay, once everything has been sewn, your base is now connected to your exterior front and back. And now, and if you did go ahead and make your 1/8 inch seam all the way around, what I did do for the sides here, I did back stitch, go back and forth over these sections a couple times when I did both of those stitches around. And so what you want to do from here is go ahead and just trim your corner. I'm just gonna use my pinking shears, and you just want to trim the corner only. That is it. All 4 corners. And then we will move on to using the back stiffener. Okay, so if you have the Bontex back stiffener, go ahead and pull this out. Now, if you weren't able to get this or don't have easy access to this, it is suggested that you can use Kraftex if you like, or you can use something else. I believe I mentioned earlier you can use Decaville Heavy, maybe a couple pieces of Decaville Heavy. What you want to do is make sure this piece is nice and sturdy. Also, you want to go ahead and glue on top here your fleece or your foam to the back. It's to add softness. I think I mentioned earlier, if I did not, I actually don't have that at the time of this recording, so I will not be doing that step only because I don't have it on hand. And so I'm going to skip right to step number 34, which is page 20 of the pattern. Instructions is you want to cut this back stiffener. Currently it's at 11 inches by 4.5 inches. What you want to do is cut this down to 10 1/4 inches by 3 3/4 inches, and then you want to round the corners, because what you're going to end up doing is gluing your foam or whatever to the back stiffener and letting it dry. But we're gonna hop over that because again I don't have those supplies. Once that is bonded, cover the other side. So if you did bond it, you can cover the other side of the back stiffener with your fabric glue. And once again, for fabric glue, I will be using this fabric tack. So what you're going to end up doing is putting glue all over this and placing this on the wrong side of the base as shown. And if you had foam or fleece batting or something, that will be on this side. But again, I don't have that at the time, but we're going to go ahead and do that, and I'll show you what it looks like, because you definitely want to give that time to dry. Okay, so here is the bonded piece is down. Make sure that it's all nice and dry, maybe 10-15 minutes. If you added foam or batting or something on this side, that will be this side up. But I wrote on here, just for the purposes of the video, this was trimmed down to 10 1/4 inch by 3 3/4 inch. So the next thing that you want to go ahead and do is turn your bag right side up. If you didn't do this already, put your weight on the inside, make sure everything is nice and dry. Once the bottom is dry, then you want to push the bottom up, starting at one corner and gently turning the bag to the right side. And then we will be setting this whole piece, this is our exterior piece, to the side, and we will begin to work on the lining. So now the base is now in. You kind of pushed out your corners there. It is looking good. And if you had the foam, you would see that foam on the inside there. But we're just gonna set this off to the side. We are done with part 2. Now it's time to move on to part 3, which is inserting the lining. Get your lining pieces and tune in tomorrow.